Welcome to today's Fireside Chat with Jesse. I am joined today by Paul Vecker, President of Macrolease. Thanks for joining me, Paul.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
No, absolutely, man. I appreciate you taking the time on a Friday before a holiday weekend to spend an hour with me here. It was a pleasure meeting you a few weeks back. Unfortunately, that was the first time, I think, in my 16 years in equipment finance that our paths have crossed. I'm sure we've seen each other at a conference over the years, but I really appreciate you taking the time to be on a panel at the Equipment Finance Cares event.
Yeah, that was great. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be on that panel. There was some really great people there. We had some really interesting things that we talked about. I really, I say the word appreciate a lot. I really appreciate what you and the organization that you're involved in are doing. And it's opportunities like this when we get to step out of our normal CEO capacities and talk about things that matter to us, both personally and professionally, that I really enjoy.
No, and thank you. I kind of reached out to you, I think, in July and was like, hey, I have this thing going on, and you agreed to it without a lot of questions. So greatly appreciate it. And that's kind of what we're going with them. We just kind of keep the groups an intimate setting where people can be themselves and we can have some thorough, thought-leading, however impactful conversation. So, Paul, for those people who might not be familiar with you in equipment finance, do you mind just talking about your career to date?
Sure. I don't know how much time you have because I've been in this business a very long time. So I'll start with the stuff that matters, I guess. So I'm an accountant by trade. I am a CPA, started my career working for a large national accounting firm in the tax and audit department there. And like lots of people who sort of begin their career that way, I thought it was a great start, but not something I wanted to do forever. And then coincidentally, the first job I got leaving public accounting was to become the controller of a leasing company that was doing computers. So this was back in the mid 1980s. So we were leasing big IBM mainframe computers that don't really exist anymore. And the people that are tuned into this that go back to that time frame will remember 3083s and 3084s and these big giant mainframes. So I did that for a while and then was part of a group of colleagues of mine who had the opportunity to become the US subsidiary of a Swiss-based public company that also did the same thing. And so I became the chief financial officer of that company at a very young age. I was 28, I think, and knew nothing about what it meant to be a chief financial officer, did not really fully understand what my responsibilities were going to be, but I took it on, and we were doing the same thing, doing large computers where we would finance the paper with a third party and we would hold the residual. That was a big residual play game back then. So I did that for a number of years, then joined a really small company closer to my house on Long Island. If you can't tell from my accent, I'm a New Yorker. And that company actually went through a small public offering. So I was chief financial officer of a private company that then went through the IPO process, which was a unique experience for anyone. And you learn, again, everything I'm talking about here is me just learning more and more. So became the chief financial officer of a public company, which in itself is a whole different category of work and experience. After that, I did the next thing, which was, hey, I've done everything except have my own company. So I left the public company and started my own company, which had an 8-year run to basically do the same thing. I was doing all different kinds of equipment. I had employees. We were holding deals on our own account, selling deals off, just sort of being a entrepreneurial, opportunistic company, taking all the experience and contacts that I had in the industry. And then eventually took that company and sort of brought it to what was then National City Commercial Capital. This was right around 2007. Had 1 year at National City and I go, this is great. I got a big bank behind me, low cost of funds, look at all the great things I can do. And then this sort of subprime mortgage thing kind of happened. And we were acquired by PNC. And I had a 12-year run at PNC where I ran their vendor finance business, where we had big programs with companies like Microsoft and Oracle, EasyGo, Toro, Ricoh, Pitney Bowes. And then at the end of, the beginning of 2019, I actually thought I had come to the end, right? I had done all of these things and I said, you know what, I'm still young and healthy, and maybe what I want to be doing now is nothing. So left them around the end of the first quarter of 2019, parted ways very happily, and was doing nothing for about a week and a half when I realized I'm really bad at doing nothing. And had a unique opportunity to take over Macrolease, which is a company that was founded in 1969. So at that point had been in business 50 years, had been managed by the same person that started the company. So they had one person running the business, one culture, one philosophy. He was in his late 70s and said, you know, I really want to leave finally, and had a hard time finding someone who he felt had the background and experience to take over for him. We found each other. Here I am, 2.5 years later.
Well, you definitely check all the boxes in regards to, I guess, roles and responsibilities to take over an organization. So what was that like taking a company public? I mean, CFO's there's already a lot on your shoulders anyways, from responsibilities and getting the numbers correctly. But from a public perspective, that just, I guess, puts the magnifying glass on even more.
Yeah, and so this was 1996, and it wasn't what it is now. There weren't the same, regulations. This was before things like Sarbanes-Oxley and some of the other things that have come into place since then. But you're still under a microscope. I would say that being an officer of a public company is like, running down the street naked. I have no experience in running down the street naked, but I imagine it's like this. Everything you do is public. Your salary, your benefits, your earnings, everything's public. Going through the process of the IPO is in and of itself quite an experience, because you're filing with the SEC and you're preparing the S1 and the red herring, and you're going back and forth with their comments and trying to get the documents right, and you're working with accountants and attorneys. And you may have a great experience as an accountant and think you have everything right, but are you up to the SEC standards? And so there's just a lot involved in that. And back then, you had to, they didn't have the technology that they have now, right? So you always file the S1. And there was a really big thing back then that you go to the printer the night before and spend 24 hours at the printer reviewing every single word in the S1. So you would get a page, you and your attorney and the attorney for the underwriter would review it, you'd give it back with any changes, and you would literally sit there all night long until 9 o'clock the next morning, and they pack the box up and send the whole thing off to the SEC. And this was before, you could order in from any place in the city, right? So you didn't have DoorDash, you didn't have Uber Eats. But one of the great things about spending the night at the printer is you can order in food from all these great restaurants, and somebody else was paying for it. So that was a unique experience. Finally getting all the way through to being a public company was a unique experience. It's great, you get the money, it's in the bank, and then the next day, the shareholders want to know, what are you doing? And as the chief financial officer, with your name on the front of the prospectus and your name on the front of all the public filings, you're the guy they call. I mean, we were a small company, NASDAQ small cap. So we didn't have an investor relations department. I was the investor relations department. So you get a phone call from a guy that owns 5 shares and he would say, the stock's up 25 cents today, should I sell? I'm not allowed to give investment advice. I'm not allowed to say anything. But you feel immediately under the microscope and immediately under pressure to quarter over quarter show growth in earnings and profit. You're doing something with that money. You went public for a reason, show how it grows. And it's an experience that I would never trade for anything.
That's fantastic. And I appreciate that perspective because I've never gone through that at this stage in my life yet. Most likely won't.
Never know. You
You
never
never,
know.
you never know. And I would say for the efficiency that technology has brought us from standing at a printer and ordering food through one of those Uber Eats, Grubhub, I think they overcomplicated the process to balance out those efficiencies.
That's probably true. They have made the and there's much more personal liability in being the officer of a public company now than there was back then. I mean, we knew we were responsible for getting things right, and I take that responsibility very seriously.
Right.
But now, if you're the chief financial officer of a public company and you sign those financial statements, you take personal liability on. That's a whole other world.
Shifting focus here, you talked a little bit about Macrolease and how long the company's been around. As far as like market served, let's just kind of talk about that if you don't mind, Paul.
Yeah, so one of the other things that appealed to me about this company is that we focus on fitness. The majority of our customers are in the fitness space. So we're doing business with large commercial fitness companies, many chains and standalone gyms that you guys have all heard of, YMCAs, colleges, universities, some private high schools, basically any place that you see a treadmill and a spin bike where you have to pay a fee to use that treadmill or spin bike is part of our customer. I really enjoy that space because I'm an avid, workout kind of guy, and I'm always interested in new equipment and, concepts that are out there. And, so they've been doing that here since they started. They started doing Cybex equipment to YMCAs and Jack LaLanne and all those other names that don't exist anymore. And now we're in places like Planet Fitness and Orange Theory. And it's a great market. It's a market that had years and years and years of growth and expansion and profit and very few charge-offs as the market for people being aware of their own body and their need to be fit expanded. And if you go back to 2019, I think the number was like 28%. Only 28% of the country participated in active fitness, which meant there was this huge amount of growth opportunity for those 72% that weren't part of gym. Like you would think growing up or living in a place like the Northeast, where there's a gym on every corner, that the market was oversaturated. There are huge parts of the country that had none of that. So I stepped into a business that I didn't really know. The fundamentals were the same. It's still lending money to people that can pay you back. It's equipment that doesn't have a great secondary market, but there is some there. And then the pandemic hit.
I was going to say, what was your first day of Macrolease? When did you start?
Yeah, so I started July 1st, 2019. So I had 6 months or so of growing a business. And we had a great year. 2019 was one of the best years the company ever had. I sort of pushed the envelope here a little bit, started, expanding into other markets, taught people to think strategically, worked on changing the culture to have this a culture of empowerment and personal accountability, because the previous culture was sort of micromanaged. And started really seeing what people's potential was. Everything's great, we're growing, we're expanding. We hear about this virus in China. That's interesting. I wonder how that's going to impact us. It probably won't, it's in China. And then 2 weeks later, we're closed. And then 2 weeks after that, every one of our customers is shut down. And we went into crisis mode. I mean, immediately, like put together a crisis team. Let's talk to our customers. Let's figure out what they need from us. Let's try and help them. We had 73%, give or take, of our customers on full principal and interest, no payments. 90 days in the beginning, and then 90 more, and in some cases 90 more after that. Because we had to keep their heart pumping while they got through, the most challenging period you could have. Fitness clubs were one of the last things to be allowed to reopen.
Yeah.
So, but the alternative was much worse. Like, what am I going to do? I'm going to call an event of default, go pick equipment up. We needed them to stay in business both for our sake, but also for their sake. I mean, we're here to help them. And so we got through that. As I look back on the last year and a half, or the whole time I've been here, the thing I'm most proud of is that we went from 72% on deferral to 13% now. And the 13% that's on deferral now are companies that we did that proactively. You're in the state of California. California is really slow to reopen. Let me give you 12 months of interest only. And then when we get to the end of 2022, you can start paying us again. But, we came through what probably was the worst thing that anybody could ever imagine happening, both from a public health, from a financial standpoint, and very selfishly as it relates to the industry that I finance. And we came through it in a positive way. So, we were talking before about the IPO that I did. This was better than that. This was a better, more positive learning experience, growth experience for me as an individual, even at my advanced age, than the IPO.
No, I mean, that's quite remarkable. And I know you talked a little bit about culture. I mean, an organization that was run for 50 years a certain way, you coming in, obviously you have, like I said, you check all the boxes, but as far as trying to shift that mindset and then 6 months later, bam. That's pretty
and I had to get them to trust me, right? So that was sort of the most important thing I had to create in the beginning, was trust. So you're right, like, I'm the new guy. There are people that have been in this company 43 years. It's the only job they've ever had. There are others that have been here 25 years, 30 years. They know one way of operating, one way of doing business. So my first approach was sort of the Hippocratic Oath, right? First, do no harm. So let me see what everybody does. Let me see what the culture is here. And let me slowly, incrementally, piece by piece, try and put my values, my culture into this environment. I very strongly believe that you need to empower people. That people need to feel like they're part of the process and have responsibility, that you trust them. So first, I needed to show them that I trusted them by giving them additional responsibility so that they could trust me. And that was, it's still an ongoing process here, right? We've never done it that way before. It's something I heard a lot in the beginning. And I think I proved to them as we went through the crisis, more than anything, was that they could trust me, that they do have their best interest, and that there are other ways of doing things besides the way they've done it here for the last 42 years. And, part of my strength, I think, as a manager, but also part of my weakness, is that I can force you to obey me. I have the title, I have the responsibility. I can force you to obey me. I can't force you to follow me. And so I want you to follow me out of choice, because I've convinced you that I'm the right person to lead you, that I lead you because of thoughts and ideas and strategy, not because I'm the president and I can intimidate you. Yeah. I have been in environments where fear and intimidation was the mantra. I will never create an environment like that.
No, and having listened to you on a few of these and then on the panel discussion, like when I hear stuff like that from a leader like yourself, it's like, yes, that's someone that I would give maximum effort for, because at the end of the day, you have their back. I think one of the key words that we brought up was empathy. And that's obviously a part of your mindset on how you lead on a daily basis. And that's fantastic, Paul. I could see myself where if I was one of those employees where it's like, okay, where's this guy coming from? PNC, because let's face it, in this industry, you have people that come from DLL, GE, and they sit there and they go to small companies and they try to run it like it was the previous company, and they do more damage than good. So.
Yeah, I think what made me, and this is not a commercial about me, but what made me qualified for this job was the fact that I've worked for small companies, including my own, yeah. where you take full responsibility for everything you do. I don't know if I was a great fit for PNC culture-wise, They're a great company, and I learned a ton there. And they're enormously successful, and hundreds of billions of dollars in total assets. And I only have great things to say about my time there. But I am someone who manages with a sense of empathy and works really hard to lead people who want to follow me. And that doesn't always work in a giant company. And I knew when I came here that if I tried to make this company mini PNC, it wouldn't work. I had to make this a company that I would be proud to work for every day. And if I was one of the employees here, I would feel that I was heard, that I was empowered, that I had a manager that understood that I'm a human being and bring all of me to work. And so everybody's situation is a little bit, that's where we talk about having that degree of compassion and empathy. You got to have that. And sometimes in really big companies, you can't have that because there's 75,000 employees and you're just a number.
And you start off by having that, and then you just kind of like, whatever, like I gotta focus, I don't want crap rolls downhill, right? Like,
it does. It does.
But yeah, I mean, I guess I did not know that about you in regards to you started your own business and everything else. So one of the things I was going to ask was, what's it like going from a big company of, I don't even know how many thousands or hundreds of thousands of employees that PNC has to, Macrolease?
So you do get comfortable in that environment just in terms of, capacity, resources. You have unlimited resources at a place like PNC if you have a good idea and you want to get that good idea kind of executed on. We had Innovation Council where you could go in front of the Innovation Council and say, I have this idea to build a business banking mobile app to allow people to apply and have it done on their phone. And here's the size of the market, here's the opportunity. And they go, great, here's millions of dollars, here's programmers, we're going to get it done for you. You come to a place like this and that doesn't exist. Now, Macrolease is owned by a bank, which is owned by a publicly held bank, or a publicly traded bank holding company. So we don't have zero resources, but it is a small regional bank, certainly in the world of PNCs out there. If I have something I want to get done here, I have to do it. Like if I want to invest in a new market, I have to write the white paper. One of the things you find at a company the size of this is there's no like bench strength. You have enough people to do the job every day, but you can't look much below that. So who's around to help me write this white paper? Who's around to help me program this Excel spreadsheet? Well, everyone's working. Everyone's at full capacity every day doing their job. So it's a big change in mindset and a big change in, okay, at this stage of my life, I got to roll up my sleeves and learn how to do a V lookup in Excel, which I never had to do before. Learn how to do a pivot table, which I never had to do before. So, but it's good. I actually, the thing I love about this company is that I can, and this is the biggest sort of, when you look at big bank, small company, things that I do on a daily basis can directly have an impact on not only the company, but on the people that work here. I can directly impact their lives in a positive way every hour of every day. I can directly impact our customers every hour of every day. And that's a responsibility that I take really seriously, but it's also a great feeling to know that you're that close to the customer, that close to the employee, and that close to the bank that owns me. I mean, I report to the president of the bank holding company, that I have a direct impact that I can see every day. At a really big bank, it's sometimes hard.
I can't really relate. I mean, the only thing I can relate to that was the previous organizations that I was with before I joined JDR. They had their full-blown marketing department. They had their full sales team. So now it's like I'm there and it's like I am marketing and I am sales. So it's like, what about that case study and the white paper and that press release? And it's like,
you got to do it.
Who does that? And they're like, well, you're sales and marketing. And I'm like, okay.
Sales and marketing.
Yeah. Okay. I guess I'm having some wine tonight, and I'm going to write a white paper. Let's rock and roll.
Yep.
Oh, that's fantastic. And so my wife for Christmas last year, I got her one of those Johnson, I don't know, was it Lifespan? It's the one that never, it's like just some commercial grade elliptical machine. You know, I had ordered it, I want to say in September, and I think it finally showed up in February. And likewise, she got us like an all-in-one gym that she ordered in March, and it showed up in September. So that's on the consumer side of things. What is that supply chain disruption looking like for you guys? Are you feeling similar stuff?
Yes. The supply chain has definitely been, and I don't know if it's COVID. I'm sure that's part of it. I don't know if it's that big tanker that got turned around in the Suez Canal. I don't know what has caused the supply chain to be as backed up as it is. But, you know, we're sitting here now in the beginning of September, and customers pretty much know that if they don't have a purchase order in now, they're not getting their equipment this calendar year on the commercial side. On the consumer side, I think, you know, like Peloton was the big product that people were ordering during the pandemic. They seem to have fixed their supply chain challenges. They seem to be able to deliver product pretty quickly. But the supply chain has certainly slowed. I don't know when it gets fixed. I've heard of companies actually closing down for a couple of weeks now to sort of just catch up and check out inventory. But it definitely has impacted the delivery of products. You know, we go through different stages of this crisis, right? So we came out of the pandemic, let's just say, when I say came out of the pandemic, when people were starting to get vaccinated and the infection rates were down, gyms were allowed to, you know, reopen. Eventually they were allowed to reopen at 100% capacity, because for many, many months it was 10%, 20%. You were allowed to go to the gym, but you had to wear a mask. And then around May of this year, they said nobody needs to wear a, you know, mask anymore. That was sort of a big impediment to people joining the gym. We saw a huge spike in memberships for May, June, and the beginning of July. All of a sudden, I could work out. I didn't have to wear a mask. Could be 100% capacity. Our customers were having great periods. This was some of the best sign-up months they ever had. Then we start with the new variant, the Delta variant that's come out now. And now some states are saying you need to go back to wearing masks. They're restricting capacity. They're saying you need to be vaccinated in order to go to a gym. And so that curve, which was this, and now this, is now kind of this, or, you know, leveling off.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to stay that way and remain, like I say, we're in crisis management here since March of 2020. We're still in crisis management. We're still helping our customers work through a recovery now, maybe recovery not as quickly as they would have hoped it would be. The PPP money, which kept them afloat for a while, is not coming in anymore. Their landlords are saying, okay, time to start paying. So they're paying them. Their customers are saying, you know, I'm not quite ready to come back because there's this new variant out there. So maybe, you know, keep me on hold for another couple of months. And now, I mean, I hate to throw another crisis on the table here, but we have a lot of customers in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Louisiana, who have been really hurt by this Hurricane Ida. And so we're doing customer outreach now to go, are you guys flooded? Are you open? Do you need more time to pay us? We seem to be bouncing from one crisis to the other here. But, you know, that's life in 2021, I guess.
No, but I mean, what that does though is once we emerge from all this, you know, that's a forever customer, right? I mean, if you're there by their side through all this stuff, when that next model comes out or they need anything, I think that loyalty will, you know, will come back full circle, which is fantastic.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, that's the hope.
all right? um, I've been asking a lot of people when they come on here a little fun fact about themselves, Paul. So if there's something you'd like to share, obviously this is going to be online. So
So it's got to be right.
you already
Exactly.
mentioned running through the street naked. So, I mean, I get it. I think I've probably done that in college. No, I didn't. But anyhow, you know,
I actually, if you go back and say, I said I never did that.
I heard that.
It doesn't mean I didn't think about it or wasn't tried to do it, but I never did it. It's not really a fun fact, but I actually consider myself a writer of some degree. It's probably one of the things that I always wanted to do a lot of. And during that really short period of time when I was doing nothing, that was sort of what I was going to do to fill my time. I've had some things published, you know, not just in the Monitor, but some other online publications. I write mostly first person things, and they're generally fact-based, some opinion things. I try to stay away from politics. It's a hot topic these days, but you know, I do believe that one day when I have the time, I will write a short story or maybe a novel or something. It's something I've always wanted to do. It's really hard, but I get a lot of pleasure out of it. And when I find a topic that I like, I can it just comes out of me, right? So it's probably easier for me to do that than to do a lot of other things. So I'm not making any promises, but one day maybe there'll be a book out there written by Paul Vecker.
Well, if and when you ever decide to do that, that's something, it's a side hobby that I have. And Brooke started Paperclip last year. And I want to say of our 12 authors, half of them have had that similar thing where like, now it's time. And the fact that, like you mentioned, it's based on fact, but a little opinion. One of the recent guys we signed is a marine biologist, and like some of the stuff that he's writing about is so scary, but it's based on facts and science that when you get into reading it, you're like, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
There'll never be a tornado in New Jersey. Never.
That was crazy. By the toll pass thing, I saw that video. I'm like, what?
Yeah, so we're here on Long Island, really not that far from where all this stuff happened. And luckily, everyone is fine and safe, and we didn't get any real bad flooding. But, you know, it makes me start to wonder whether this is going to be the pattern from now on, right? Like we are now in the Northeast going to be susceptible to things like hurricanes and tornadoes and who knows, you know, what else. So it does frighten me. And if I do end up, you know, publishing something about it, it's going to be less about the climate change and more about how I feel about it, what the impact is on me, and how I feel about leaving a planet to my children and my grandchildren in a, you know, worse state than I found it. And again, most of the stuff that I write is sort of that. It's like taking an event and talking about the types of feelings that it creates in me. And what many people say when they, you know, read my stuff is, you said all the things that I felt. Like I couldn't find the way to express it. You were able to express it for me. And that's the best compliment I could ever have.
Absolutely, because you're giving them a voice and they can relate, and no, it's perfect. Well, that's exciting. Maybe I'll have to share some of these things that you had published if you don't mind, so I can take a look at them.
Sure, I'll be happy to.
I will email you over this guy's information, and if you start to look into it, it's like, no, and then it's one of the side projects I've taken on, understanding him and working with him. It's like, holy cow, it's intense. So
sometimes there's stuff that you just don't want to know.
No, but it was one of those things where it's like microorganisms and whatever. And then we were just on this beautiful lake up in Idaho, Henry Lake, and there was a water advisory. And then you do some research on it. And since 2014, there's been some microbacteria that you can't even boil the water to get it out of, Paul. So it's like, as we're up there, it's like coffee, bottled water, you know, you're using bottled water, brush your teeth. I mean,
Yeah,
and I guess they just can't get rid of it. And it's like, come on.
pretty scary.
And a lot of the streams in Yellowstone, you're not supposed to eat the fish out of them because they're all contaminated. They shut down fishing because the water temperatures are so warm that they would not allow you to fish in the afternoons, because that's when the algae and everything is up and people are getting sick. Anyhow, we could probably.
All right. Well, on that happy note.
Sorry about that. So
It's
just
okay.
kind of wrapping up here, you know, of all the different organizations out there that finance fitness equipment, why choose Macrolease?
That's a really good question, and one that I'm happy to give the answer to. This is what we do. There are other companies out there that do it as a side hobby or do it on an opportunistic kind of way. We do it because this is what we do. And in fact, the bank that owns us was very clear to me when they hired me that they want to remain in a very tight market. We want lots of experience, lots of knowledge in one vertical. The further you stray away from that, the more likely you are to make a mistake. So there are businesses that are sort of fitness, you know, that we look at, but this is what we do. So we know how to underwrite the credits. We know that financial statements don't always tell the full story of whether a business is good or bad. We know the equipment. We know the equipment manufacturers. We know what we're supposed to do with the equipment once we get our hands on it. We know the trends in the business and the different seasonality of the business. And most important, and I think we proved that over the last year and a half, is how much we care about the success of our customers. You know, we're in this business. Yeah, we started it. We've been in it a long time. But since I've come here, I've come to understand that this is actually a higher calling. Like, I know we work for a bank and we want to protect our shareholders and make money and all of those other things, but we're providing capital to companies who provide a facility that allow people to get healthy and fit. I mean, that's a higher calling. And I don't want to, you know, make it sound like we're here to save whales, because at the end of the day, we are here to make money, but there's a higher calling to what we do. And especially as we've come through COVID, people understand that being fit, being healthy, being the right, you know, cardio health will help you when you are going through the situation where people all around you are getting sick. So, you know, we care about our customers. We care about their customers. We know the equipment. We know the business. We've been doing it a long time, and we're going to keep doing it a long time.
Thank you very much. I mean, I think that pretty much sums it up. I mean, from a business perspective out here in Arizona, I mean, there's new EOSs, I think, are popping up like everywhere. So
one of our customers.
So all those things are right around us here. So this will be a growing hotbed for you guys for a while. But Paul, once again, thank you for your time, sir. Hopefully our paths cross in the next few months at a conference. And thanks again for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a great opportunity to come and talk, and, you know, to you and your entire audience. And, you know, like you, I hope you have a chance to be in the same room again soon.
All right. Thank you, sir.